Look okay? I gave myself a haircut.
Yeah, you look great. You
Just
look
don't
Thanks.
great.
turn around. Don't need
Perfect.
attention.
Done. I'll turn it around. I'll show it off.
Maybe that's what the people need to see.
Maybe.
Welcome back to another midweek episode of the Cooldown podcast. Today again we are joined by 5Foot Nothing Sports, no G's, and we're here to talk about sports and COVID and how just the world as a whole, but just how this little part of the world has changed dramatically. So Coach K recently wrote an article about what he thinks could happen, how the NFL could still play in a as safe as possible environment, and so why did you? I'm just gonna start with a very general question.
Okay.
Did you do it out of actually wanting your proposal to happen, or were we just kind of bored and you just thought,
No,
let's just throw it out there?
so the motivation behind the article was, I think, came from like my rage of hearing the NFL come out with their schedule, their full, now 17 game schedule, basically pretending that COVID is not around, or that by the time the NFL season goes away, COVID will be like, oh, okay, football's here. I guess I'm done now.
Yeah.
When I saw the NFL do that, I was really appalled by the arrogance of the sport and how they can just imagine or pretend that, hey, let's just do this, because it's what we do. We're the NFL, and not try to put together a plan, or in cases, not only is this going to be around, because it is going to be around, but my God, if there's a relapse with this, and a lot of experts are trying to predict that, or are predicting that the fall could be really, really bad. How do you not create a plan in place right now for your NFL season? You have the time, unlike the NBA, baseball, or
Mm-hmm.
hockey. Like, you have the time to put this plan in place. Not only do you have the time, you also have the money as well to make this happen. You have all the resources at your there at your hands, and yet you came out with this plan that, hey, no,
It
for
wasn't
right
a
now
plan. They
we're
just
going to,
did year as normal.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, we're just going to pretend everything's normal, and we'll deal with it until we have to deal with it. And I think, personally, seeing not only just sports do this, but every facet of life, whether it's the government, your job, what have you, I just would have liked to have seen somebody say, you know what, we're going to put a plan in place in case this does not get better. But you can still release your schedule, but why not release two plans? Plan A is, hey, nothing's going to happen. If
Mm-hmm.
nothing happens, this is our season. This is what we typically do. It's what we're going to do. And plan B is, if this is not a way, or God forbid it gets worse, this is what we can do so we can assure the entire country you're going to at least have the NFL. That's what I wish they would have done. And that's what kind of created the motivation for the article.
And one of the things I'm just gonna, because one of your things you talked about is creating hubs, which is what we've heard about in NHL is going to do, and the NBA is going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, with the NFL, not no, we're going to play in the stadiums under the assumption that even if they come back, I don't believe, even though the Governor Cuomo came out and Governor Newsom came out and said, California said, we're going to open up, we want our pro stadiums there. What's the difference of playing in MetLife Stadium, playing in LA, or you're all playing in, there's no fans. So if there's no fans, it doesn't matter where you play. There's no home advantage. There's no away advantage. Like, that's where you create the hub. And I think that's, you touch upon that in your article when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to that.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear the governors talk about that, and like, right, why are they pushing that? It's not like, you're creating more jobs by opening up the stadiums. You're not going to need to have concessions. You're not going to have anywhere near the size of the security force. Ticket sales, you don't have that. You're not going to have fans there. So all that extra personnel is just to deal with the fans, not the players. So, right, if you have empty stadiums, what difference does it make if it's, at Gillette Stadium, or, it's in Florida, where the Gators play? That I didn't understand that part of it either.
I wonder if maybe that's just for us regular people, to maybe some people might have hope that, oh, if they're going to open it, if they want to open it, maybe they'll have fans eventually, and that might just be we're just throwing you a bone for right now.
Yeah.
Ultimately knowing that's probably not going to happen. At least that's how I would hope that they're doing it. Just trying to throw the people a bone for some hope.
I would like to think that, but then you hear the owner of the Panthers. No, we can have some fans in there, and I think Ohio State just came out and said that they could have a certain amount of fans.
Yeah,
based
Ohio
on
State. I think there's like
Ohio
it was
State
like 40% of their capacity.
Yeah, and I'm like that. I get the given hope, but I don't think it's not. It's not hope. It's not, because what's going to happen is it's not going to happen, or if they do it, then there's going to be a huge relapse. It's not hope. It's looking to try to just get the economic benefit of it, and that's it.
Yeah, my thought was playing at home with no fans is hope. The other ones I don't think are like what Panthers and Ohio State.
Yeah.
I think those ones are just selfishness. I think just potentially having home field advantage, I think might be adding hope.
I mean, I think it is. A part of that is the economic hardship, and it's hard for us to feel sorry for these billionaire owners and their economic hardship. However, I just read today that if with the Power 5 conferences in college football, if there is no season, they're going to lose $4 billion. And unfortunately, why we say, okay, but you guys can afford it. The problem is the reason why they're going to be able to afford it is because that's going to lead to the laying off of people.
Yeah.
We already see this with baseball and getting rid of minor league teams, in droves, because they're anticipating this economic, whether it's already happening, this economic catastrophe that's happening, not only with that, but the entire sport as a whole. So I get what you're saying, and you're right, because, we don't feel bad for you that you're losing money. The problem is when they lose money, it's going to affect everybody underneath it. And that's going to create an even bigger problem.
And I agree with that. And that's why I think you have to think, how can we make sure that at least we get a season? You don't have it, like, if there's a relapse and you're at other stadiums, your season's done. You're not going to get to come back. You're not going to have it. Here's the opportunity for you to set this up. Guess what? This is a year. You break down divisions. We can talk about that because I differ a little bit. But you break up the divisions, and this next year, it doesn't matter. It's a whole new format. Everything's new. The NHL just rolled out. It's a brand new format. Get a little creative and just get creative. Try new things.
I agree. And one sport that definitely should be, and we'll probably get into them a little bit later on, it's baseball.
Yes.
This should have been baseball's golden opportunity to take the lead, and they have not. They've done the exact opposite.
Yeah, they could be the sport on TV and get people back into it. Especially the younger generation. And
right now, Jeremy, I actually believe that they will be the one sport that will not be on TV this year,
which is a shame.
Will be baseball, which will be a shame if that's true.
But before we get there, let's stay with the football.
All right.
Because
I'll yell about that later.
I like your new playoff format that you have, and it's because it's different, and because the divisions are different. You broke it up into four hubs, 4 divisions.
Yep.
Where 8 teams are playing. You're playing in the league twice, which I don't think each team had 8. So if they played twice, so you play twice, you're playing 14 games. So there's no 17 new game schedule. Like, this year's a wash when it comes to what you anticipate.
Exactly.
It's different.
Exactly.
I like the hubs. I think I switched a couple teams around. I switched a couple areas around. And one of the things that I thought of, and then I felt like my conversation was being recorded by the Florida athletic director, that they should take these college teams and put them in LSU, put them in a dormitory in this stadium that is big, or that NFL players would feel like is an NFL stadium, which is LSU.
I do like that idea. I wish I had thought of that before I wrote the article, because if I had to go back and revise it, that's something I think I would absolutely put in. I think it makes the most sense. College campuses are not going to be open in the fall, so put the players there. It's an easy way to track it. It's an easy way to make sure that no one's leaving. You can have like some sort of resemblance of life on campus.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of great possibilities here. And I think it would be an outstanding way to, again, utilize your resources. College campuses wouldn't be used. Those football stadiums wouldn't be used. Throw them in there. And I kind of think that creates some cool stories as well. Like, it's kind of like going back to school and like these players going back to these stadiums they used to play in. That's where they made their names. There's something compelling to that. I think that would definitely work.
I think another interesting thing that would be is you record them. You have Hard Knocks come in and you make it more accessible, and it gives. I just thought of that. It gives that, which I know you don't appreciate, but it gives that Little League World Series presence where it's like they're all together. Like you're back to being. It's like you're a kid. There's no outside surroundings of you going out here, going there. Because guess what? No one can do that. You're
Yep.
here.
Yeah, you don't play then leave.
Yeah.
You're stuck in this hub, so let's work together.
Right.
And I think that to me is a cool, really cool concept when it comes to it. I think using a college campus, you control it. I mean, you lock those college campuses are huge. You have Michigan, you have Ohio State, you have LSU, like all these stadiums where you could be. I think would be an interesting take on
Absolutely.
Even arena.
I mean, think about how cool it would be. And I know, Dubs, you won't appreciate this because of your hatred for them. But it's too bad because the Notre Dame president talked about having this early enrollment to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
How cool would it be to see NFL games at Notre Dame? Like, that would be an amazing venue. It'd be an amazing site. I think that would be really, really neat.
I think it's something they should look into, and I think colleges at the same time would be interested in it. Like if I'm California, yeah, Rose Bowl, let's
Absolutely.
go. Like
Yep.
I just
Absolutely.
Yeah, and one thing I just want to make sure talk about, because you talked about the divisions real quick, but so how Coach K broke it up was 4 divisions based on geography, which is and really broke it down. It was better than how some of it is now.
I broke it down. I know that's true.
Yeah, so like right now it's kind of whatever.
Yeah, I just kept it really simple. You know, I put because there's an AFC East and an NFC East. Now they're one division.
Yep.
You know, and again, I think it creates just amazing matchups. Like these are the matchups people really do want to see.
Yeah. You're guaranteed to get the Giants Jets. Like
Yeah.
not that either of those teams are going to be compelling to watch, but if you're guaranteed to watch them, that's cool.
I only watched them once. Now I get to watch them twice.
Yeah, you get to watch the bad Giants and the Patriots, a rematch that doesn't look like it did years ago.
Sure.
And I think that's just compelling. Obviously, some divisions are much stronger than others, but your playoff format is very different, which I think needs to happen if you're gonna have a wash season. You gotta spice it up. You gotta do something different.
Oh.
You know, like other sports are gonna do. I'm assuming shorter series and everything. But you took a book out of the soccer.
I know, which I was going to give him credit for because I'm not a soccer guy, but I love the idea.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm in the same boat. I always like the way they do it, though. I will say I've always liked that.
The World Cup with the seeding you're talking about, right?
Yep.
Yeah, me too. I mean, the randomness sometimes kills me, especially, again, being a soccer fan in Champions League, and again, it comes down to those ping pong balls. Like, you're Man United and you got to go up against, Real Madrid and PSG and Liverpool. And then, of course, there's Arsenal and they're playing against, CSK Moscow.
That means nothing to me, so I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
It's not
wait, is that like the Chiefs playing the Niners in the first round?
No, that's like the Chiefs playing San Diego State.
Oh, okay.
That's what that's like.
Yeah,
or the Bengals. Okay.
Yeah, or the Bengals, exactly. Yeah, I did. I think again, it's simple, it's easy. I think because I think all the sports, if they're going to have a season, they're going to have an expanded playoff. This gives the NFL an opportunity to do something similar to that. I think if you run the schedule I think if you look at the TV schedule, that was a big selling point to me. Make every game visible. And again, the only way you can do that is to keep it simple.
Yeah, you keep it the same, and all football days are the same because there's no college.
Yeah,
you just take. So that's what the schedule is. I'm going to link it down below the whole
and
article.
Another thing to think about too, aside from there not being any college football on Saturdays, well, what's Friday night all about? Well, Friday night's always about high school football, and there's not going to be high school football in a lot of these states as well. And now you are supplementing that with the NFL. Like it is, I think it works out absolutely perfectly. You have a lot of primetime games, and you can have afternoon games because no one's doing anything.
Yeah,
no one's doing
it. But again, I think it does. I think it works really well.
And it's going to be in the winter and the fall where people are less likely to be out. Like now, if you're baseball or basketball, the weather's getting nice. Even though you can't do much, the weather is getting nicer.
Yeah,
right.
So you are going to be venturing out a little bit more. And that's what I look at as when it comes to this is you monopolize. You go from Thursday to Monday night. and
Absolutely.
it's games all the time. It's games.
Yep.
And a game on Thursday night, then 2 games on Friday night, which is kind of cool because you could definitely do like the East Coast West Coast swing, which would be
Yep.
that'd be an interesting thing to do.
Yep.
Your Saturdays, 2 games, like
It's a
which is
classic Saturday, just with pros instead of college.
yes,
Exactly.
it's exactly what it is. And then it's a Sunday too, but everyone's on, so which means if I'm on, let's say CBS and Fox, they're both games are on. Like I think that they need to. And I also think they're going to have to do it because there's no new content. So you're gonna have to do this. You're gonna remote announce, which they do anyway now. That NASCAR just did it.
Yeah.
And my understanding,
And the guys are in a booth anyway. Remote
well.
announcing's not difficult. It's not like we don't need Booger. We don't need Booger on the sideline anymore.
Well, he got fired.
Yeah.
And I also made a point to point that out in the article as well. It opens up more opportunities,
Yeah.
especially for your streaming networks to come in and take over some of these days. So you're right. So maybe Sunday is your typical your Fox and your CBS day, and then Monday is ESPN because I believe they still have the Monday Night Football. Yep. But then maybe Friday night instead of Sunday Night Football, it's Friday Night Football with NBC, or Amazon gets in on this, Netflix, Facebook, YouTube. And again, this is how the NFL can really experiment with all this, because that is going to be the general direction that this is going to go in. Now here's your chance to experiment with this, try it out, see how your fans like it, and then you can learn from that, tweak it, and make it better in the future.
And it would generate much needed revenue.
Yeah,
because you're going to have to sell these other games, and ESPN, Fox, and NBC don't have the rights to those because they're different games. Right. So you might get to which games is there a flex week, which I think that would still be a thing. Because you'd have to agree with that. You have to be able to. NBC would still be able to flex over everybody.
Right.
I don't think anyone's going to care when it comes to that. Because if that game gets flexed, I'm still most likely watching the Jaguars Browns on a Friday night because
it's something to do. Yeah.
It's just. I agree. It's just something on.
What?
And with a shortened season, every game is now more compelling because every game now means something. And I think, and again, in my playoff system, you have to be one of those top 2 teams if you're going to have a chance to get in. So maybe towards the end of the year, some of those matchups become a little, less exciting. But why is that different from any other situation in the NFL? You're always going to have that. But at least this making everything visible makes your brand more visible, makes the product more visible. I think it's a no-brainer for them to do it like that.
So the XFL, that was YouTube exclusive, correct?
No.
The XFL was on. Well, I think it was actually on ABC, ESPN.
Yeah, it was on ESPN.
Okay, then maybe it was the
AAF
was a YouTube exclusive, because I know YouTube did try to do it with one of the smaller leagues. And I know Twitch, which is like more a gaming platform, they have NBA G League. They are the largest NBA G League streamer, which is actually grown from them not having really games televised to. I've actually streamed. I partnered with the G League and I streamed a game and commentated, and it was really cool.
Nice.
And that's the streaming platform that they can do, and they can just like you were saying, they can reach so many more people that would not turn on the TV and go to that channel.
Which is a good thing for Twitch because the NBA G League is expanding. Well, it was expanding.
Yeah. The NBA G League, and also the NFL and Thursday night football and Twitch have a deal where they also stream it there, and they have a bunch of popular people because they're trying to, and it's smart. They're like, wow, it's growing. Let's get the young kids in.
It's because Twitch is owned by Amazon.
Yeah.
And Amazon streamed Thursday night football last year. Yeah.
Okay, because they'd have a lot of their popular streamers that were also fans to it. And then another question about the schedule. So it's a 14-week regular season. Would you then push the season back 3 weeks, add an extra bye week, or end early? Because would you push it back 3 weeks so players would have more time to work, get in shape? Because
so I think, and again, this is where we're going to try to poke the holes at what I set up here. Is I think there would have to be bye weeks installed. And maybe you just do it maybe it was 1 week there's not football, or exactly how you would make that happen. You would have to make that happen. You would have to install bye weeks. So now you're right. Now you're 3 weeks a little shy. Honestly, though, by that point, the NBA season's rolling, NHL's rolling. In theory, if everything's going to plan, then they start up in October, or actually the rumor is they're planning on starting their next season in December.
Yeah, on Christmas. That's what.
Yeah, on Christmas. So I actually think it'd be better for the NFL probably to finish up in January. Put the Super Bowl just for this year back in January. Again, it gives you more time to have your off season and recuperate from this, to take what you've learned through this quarantine season and seeing what you can adopt for future seasons if, God forbid, this would ever happen again. I think you're creating there's problems with it, but they're not big problems. They're not big enough problems where we'd have to squash this. But I think regardless, having the Super Bowl in January or February, you're still making your money.
Yeah.
I think football would be like the pioneer sport in this all.
The ad revenue would probably be higher for this Super Bowl than which probably it always goes up anyway. But I would imagine it be more because people are that much more inclined to be inside.
I think it just I think it just depends on the NFL,
the economy as a whole.
What the economy is doing, and are the other sports up? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Optimistically, if
because
do start recovering, then
one of the things with the ad revenue is it might not be there, and that is something that you have to look at. And I think that's where streaming services do play a role in that. Mm-hmm. Guess what? Because if you're Amazon. I mean, if you stream the game on Amazon, they're playing Amazon commercials. That's what Amazon's going to do.
Yep. So, they're playing their own Amazon Prime, their Amazon shows.
They're going to show they're going to just stream what they own already, and YouTube. That they're all just that's what your revenue is going to be. If I'm streaming you, it's all my stuff, and I think that's not a bad thing, right? In this, especially this year, it's not going to be a bad thing because that's where the money. You have to keep. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get your car commercial. Not going to get your airline commercials because they got no one. It's not going to be
your beer commercials. So.
You'll get your beer commercials.
Yes, people will still be drinking beer.
Yes. One of the things that is when you talk about is protecting the players, and I still think even to this day when we see the bunch of the rollouts that are happening, that hasn't really been addressed. You could say that's probably because at the federal level it's not really being enforced, and now the leagues don't really know what they're coming up with plans, but they're seeing all these holes. And when it comes to player, protection, one of the guidelines was you're gonna have to wear masks, like a face mask in your helmet, and it's like are we doing not that it's I don't think it's gonna take away from the game. I'm not saying that, but now you're talking about you are huffing and puffing. You are. Mm-hmm.
Well, and again, and I think that's where and this is something I was saying to you before we got on, your best, the only thing you can do is be as smart as possible.
Yes.
And, if we're talking about wearing a mask underneath your helmet, well, what happens if a player gets injured and you have to remove the helmet and remove the mask?
Yeah.
Now that person's exposed. What if I come to the sidelines, I want to drink a water. I left my mask down. I take a drink of water.
Yeah, there have been some leagues. I know there's a league in Germany. At least I heard of this. That the soccer league, and then a lot of players got hurt because they tried to get them back, and they tried to do single stream, a water and Gatorade, but then that's just so much effort if something goes wrong with that.
And there's been an outbreak in the German league. I think League 2, their second league, with one of the teams there. They 4 guys have it. Yeah. And again. Nothing's going to be perfect. There's a great chance that could happen. I think what it comes down to is what plan do you have in place? God forbid that does happen. Mm-hmm. This just popped into my mind, but because it was on the other day, and maybe it just be this simple. But remember in the Mighty Ducks,
great movie,
the first movie, great movie. Remember the only reason why they got in was they won that last game. I forget who it was at the bottom of the standings. One team got measles. They were out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I cannot think of who that team was. It wasn't the Panthers. It was somebody like that, and they were out. So I do wonder if that's just what you do. In the end, sports is entertainment. Mm-hmm. So if it did happen to one team, even if it happened to one league, and you had to shut that league down and then play with the other teams to at least give us something. Maybe that's just what you do. Again, you hope for this is an imperfect world we're living in. We're teachers.
Mhm.
I don't think a single one of us could argue with the amount of work we're putting into it. And we're all putting in a lot of work into our lessons and trying to reach to our kids. This ain't perfect education. This is not perfect teaching by any stretch of the imagination. No matter how much time you're putting in, it's just not. It's not the same. But that doesn't mean we stop doing it.
Yeah.
That's true.
So I think you be as smart as possible. You take every precaution possible. You have them take their temperatures, just like the people at Burger King. I see that commercial every day.
Yeah.
It makes me feel good that now my Burger King employees are getting their temperatures and
I
they're
thought
not
it was
really touching the food.
I thought it was because
That's
you
why
were
I still
walking
go
in
there.
for everything. Yeah,
But
that's what it is. You get your temperature every day because you go to Burger King.
I'm supporting my local business. I'm supporting my local Burger King.
Sure. I think that, like you said, you got to be as smart as you can. And I think that that's where I get kind of frustrated with the NFL is when they rolled out that schedule. And it's like, are you serious? Like, do not read the room. And I think that that's when you look at what your article. I think if we kind of amend it and we bring it to a college campus where you lock them down, where you do all this stuff. I think that that's important when it comes to your sustainability of your sport in order just to be in a hub and be able to create that as a safe environment. You're not exposing the general public with airline. You're not exposing anybody. You're keeping it there if it does happen, and hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully everyone's good.
Yeah.
By the time that happens, you centrally locate a month in it, and you know what? It stinks. It stinks to be cooped up like that. I'm not even, I've been cooped up with an almost 2-year-old. So, it's rough. But at the same time, you got to do what you need to do to make money. And if you're a player and you don't want to do it, okay, that's fine. You're not getting paid. I'm okay with that. That's your option.
Right.
But I think that then players, when it comes down to it, they're gonna do it. So, but you have to create it as safe as possible.
I definitely think the NFL players are going to do it.
They have no union, so.
Right, nowhere near as strong as baseball or the NBA. Absolutely. But not only that, again, a lot of those players, they probably can't afford not to do it.
No.
They still make really good money, but that ain't guaranteed. They don't play.
And
the
NFL, short life.
Yeah, the NFL career, right? It's a short world. Maybe you're lucky you can hang in the league for 2-3 years. A lot of these guys, because I know when we think of the NFL, we think of all the superstars, but there's 52 guys on that roster. I'm a diehard Patriot fan. You guys are diehard fans of your Niners and your Saints. I doubt you can name all 52 members of the team. And there's going to be a lot of guys on that team, right, who are not going to be able to sustain a career in the NFL for much longer. They're going to need every dollar they have.
Yeah. Once your rookie contract's up, if you aren't making a substantial deal, you probably just got replaced by another rookie and you're out. 25, 26.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yep.
Or you're taking you're not taking a lot. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think talking about the hubs and making it safe kind of segues into literally every other sport because the NBA, their first plans essentially were we're going to go into different locations. And it's kind of insulting that the NFL, their first plan was we're just not going to care about it. When they already saw that the NBA was hey, and baseball, we're going to go to these places and try to create hubs. And the NFL kind of just disrespectful, we don't need to do that. But I think the NBA will come. I think they're going to come back first. Obviously, they're already opening up facilities. And they also have less players. So I think that's obviously a major component.
Yep.
It's kind of crazy because that's what I would think too. But I guess based off, which is still early, that the NHL is actually ahead of them when it comes to negotiations and it comes to stuff like that and the formats. And the NHL, which it dropped today, they're down to 10 sites, I guess, that they're scoping out. In 2 hubs, one of them is Vegas, one of them so they're because the NBA is supposed to go to Disney. That's
to Disney
in Florida. Yeah, they're going to be they're going to be at Disney. That's the rumor, but it hasn't been fully set out yet. Which means the NHL could probably get Vegas, which would be good for them.
Yeah.
And I think that they released their playoff schedule where 24 teams are getting in. I mean, it's the NHL. Usually, I feel like every team gets in. They just added more teams getting into the playoffs. Any team that had a somewhat chance of making the playoffs has the opportunity to now be in the playoffs. They're just going to jump straight into the playoffs, which, me personally, a hockey regular season, not the most exciting. I'm not I don't have a true hockey team.
It's a long
season. I liked the Patrick Waugh, Peter Forsberg, Joe Sakic of the Colorado Avalanche. I would say now I'm probably more of an Islander fan. It's just based on, geography and hatred for Ranger fans. And so in the NHL, when the hockey players come around, I just pick a team. Yeah, I'm going to be a bandwagon guy and I'm going to jump back and forth. I just want good hockey. To me, playoff hockey is some of the most exciting things. A 1-goal game in playoff hockey is so amazing. It's just it's great.
And they're not tying at the end.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing for me. I know there will be a winner or a loser.
Yeah. And to me, I like what they're doing. I like their proposal, which is kind of weird because Gary Bettman has always been known as the worst commissioner, and I think that he's actually doing a pretty good job with this. Getting ahead of it and reading the room.
Yeah, man, because I think, again, the NHL, if they are going to do this modified season and they're going to expect fans to buy into this, then you need to be aggressive. You need to get out there first. You need to be one of the first ones out there because, again, you don't carry the same weight as an NBA or an NFL. So, if you hold off on this, you just don't have a season, especially when the NFL gets started up. Because, again, there's not going to be a lot of people watching it. But if you're the first ones, just look at the ratings like the MMA fight was getting on ESPN. People were hyping this up. Again, I'm not a big MMA guy, but I even recognize those names because there's nothing else on. There's nothing else on. I think if the NHL started first, their ratings those first few weeks or 2 weeks or however long it would be before the NBA or baseball figured it out and got started up would be outstanding, and that's how you market your sport.
Yeah, I think as long as the NHL beats the NFL, they'll be fine. Because if the NHL is in mid-playoffs by the time the NBA and MLB starts, they still have the playoff part to push them at least to compete with them. But once the NFL starts, they're done. And that's a scary thought because they're already losing so much. And if we just talked about how, the other sports are losing billions of dollars. NHL cannot afford that even more.
Right. I agree.
That's where I look in. If the NHL comes back first, and let's just say it's a weekend, you beat them by a week, and you have some great games, every sports fan's watching. So
you have all week, it's just hockey highlights.
Now it's just hockey highlights. And guess what? That's what they're going to run because we were talking about this with The Last Dance. The Last Dance, that's all they talked about on talk radio. For 2 hours or a 4-hour show is about The Last Dance. Well, now I actually got live sports. Oh my gosh. And everyone's going to love it. I'm tuning. I'm going to watch as many games as I possibly can because why? Because it's different. It's a live event.
And this is why baseball needed to get ahead of this more than anyone else. This quarantine started basically around April 1st, correct? If I remember, I think we're in
mid-March.
Mid-March. Even more to my argument.
Yeah.
Mid-March. Basketball couldn't prepare for this. The NHL couldn't prepare for this. But I think this is also where my rage came with the NFL. Granted, spring training was already going on. Regardless, it's now June. It's almost June. You still don't have a plan in place. Why were you not talking to the players a month ago, quietly, trying to figure this out? If I was Rob Manfred, I would climb over mountains to make sure that the first team sport that people are going to see live again is baseball. Because you have all this young talent that is being buried by the popularity of the NBA, the popularity of the NFL, and the ineptitudes of baseball and their inability to market their players. Here's your golden opportunity. Try a new league, try a new playoff format, new divisions, the universal DH. Try all the stuff you wanted to try, and no one can complain about it because there's nothing else on.
Yeah, and that's the one
thing your chance
is they last year is the last like year or maybe last 2 years where they did the let kids be kids commercial, and that like was a big thing, and I was like, good, MLB needs to change from this old timer thought, and this could have been where they really took it off, and they just chose not to.
They fell right back into what they do and what they know.
Just traditionalist and very simple.
Yep, which is the players, expecting way too much, in terms of how much they want to get, and the owners making sure they made it public to make the players look bad, so we can have this strife, so they can use that to. But again, that's never worked for the sport. It's never worked for the sport. So why they're going back and doing it again is just beyond me.
I want to say it doesn't work, but it does for the billionaires. This method works for the billionaires because it works in our economy. And I think that's kind of what you're looking at. Like, the owners are still fine. They're going to be fine. They're not going bankrupt. I'm not worried about that. But you look at, because I'm on the players. Yes, well, certain things that were said were not the most intelligent things that came out, 100%. But I'm looking at it from the perspective of who the employee is and who the employer is. And in this time of quarantine, Jeff Bezos is going to become a trillionaire. We have people who are out of work, who are losing jobs, and yet we're going to have somebody so the owners to me are going to be okay. They have other jobs. Yes, is it affecting them? 100%. But they're going to be okay compared to the players. And when you look at it, when it comes to people then hop on the players because you see the player's face. You see the player's face. That's who you want. That's who you're going to get mad at.
And that's who
you're never
look
gonna
up
get
to.
mad
You look up to the player. No one looks up to the owner.
Yeah.
But I think that, again, and I get what you're saying about the owners, because, again, we look at them sitting on this massive pile of money that none of us will ever be able to touch. And we go, okay, if you lose that little corner of money over there, we're not going to feel bad for you. The difference is, I don't think it's a little corner of money. And again, I know they're not going to get in our level of in terms of finance. However, when you look at the strike of 81, when you look at the strike in 94, they did decimate the sport. And a lot of owners lost money because of this. That's a big reason why Montreal ended up moving, because, again, they couldn't sustain it, especially after the strike. They lost a lot of momentum. Baseball in the 80s, their ratings were horrendous, absolutely horrendous. Now, on top of that, here's the difference. 81 and 95, they're completely different than what we're dealing with right now. In 81, 95, the sport hurt. The sport hurt really bad until, yes, you had Cal Ripken's thing. But again, and we'll see this with the documentary with McGuire and Sosa, it's going to be coming up in a few weeks on ESPN. That's what put baseball back on the map again. That's when the owners started making their money back again. We are in the midst of one of the worst economic hardships in our history, possibly even worse than the Great Depression. These owners are going to lose millions upon millions of dollars, especially in the sport of baseball, if they don't fix this now. And if the owners lose it, that means the players are losing even more. That's the difference with this. And that's why, again, the fact that they go back to that old playbook it's just beyond me. Like, how once again you've dropped the ball on this opportunity for you guys when you could at the very least afford it.
I think that's kind of my thing, is the owners are the ones that leaked it. And it's what you said before. That's what's frustrating to me, is this hasn't worked for you. You've always lost money. And I get they leaked it because after Blake Snell spoke. Okay.
And Trevor Bauer. Now I can
Yes. But okay, there's two players. Who cares? But when you leak it, and I get it because there's nothing going on, so they're going to harp on it. But if you know in your playbook, which a lot of these owners are from they're still from here, because if you know this doesn't work, you do it again. That to me is what's frustrating. Is yes, we are in an unprecedented time when it comes to the pandemic, 100%. But the other thing is the playbook you've run before, which was making the players look bad, always comes back to bite your financial line anyway. So why are you doing that? That to me is what I think is the most frustrating. At the end of the day, we might, with the NFL, like the players say dumb things, you never hear the owners talk. You just hear Roger Goodell talk. And guess what?
Yep.
Seems to work out well. It's the same thing. Besides Mark Cuban, but he's really going political right now. The NBA guys don't talk.
Nope.
Adam Silver talks, and they're making the money. The owners, you don't leak this stuff, and that to me is the issue.
Absolutely.
I can agree with
I just not to end that conversation, but
again, it's just out of all the sports, even with the NFL doing what they're doing, and again, there's still that other part. Like, well, at least they're trying. At least you can say they're trying, even though it's pretend trying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's trying. You know, we got into a point now again with baseball, because I've been talking about this on our blog and podcasts we've done in the past. I really thought over the last 2-3 years, baseball was on this upswing, like they had not really seen since the steroid era, the steroid era. And all due to the phenomenal young talent they have, the storylines we saw, the Cubs finally winning the World Series. I mean, even the whole Astros scandal, as bad as that was for the sport, you know what? No one was not going to watch because of it. In fact, I think ratings were going to be even higher this year.
Everyone wanted to see how Tuve get hit, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And the two teams that got screwed the most of it are your biggest market, the Yankees and Dodgers. Do you imagine what the ratings would be in that World Series?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they had the sport had all of this momentum and had no idea what to do with it. And we're seeing that right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing that would kill the sport right now, if they did come back, is that they wouldn't be allowed to fight, which fans would be upset about that. But
hey, you can just peg Altuve for free.
Yeah,
your catcher don't even have to worry about blocking for him.
Well, I think that would come down even harder on that if you hit somebody.
Oh the suspensions would definitely be flying more than just like crazy. Agreed.
Oh, totally.
And I wonder, negotiation. I wonder where that is in negotiations when it comes to punishment, not just for baseball, but for the other sports as well. Like, because hockey, there's no fighting. And it's pretty much if you fight, you're gone. Like they're not playing this. So, which you know what? It's a year. If you want your sport coming back, you gotta bite the bullet. Which is why I think you create the hubs as well. Like, think creatively, try new things. I think for baseball, one of the things that they should do, because it worked out well for I forget what it was, but mic the players. The players. Make them more personable. Like
that's always been a nice touch.
Mm-hmm. Especially in baseball.
Yeah, you have time in between. You have so much time in between. You go out, you talk to literally any player. You can talk to Trout, you can talk to Bellinger. You can literally just the pitcher catcher mic you probably really couldn't do, but you could do that. You know, if you want to do it every once in a while.
I think the biggest thing to do is if all the players are mic'd, when they do like the manager in the inning, interview one of the players that's not in the game.
Yeah.
Because understanding is they're not going to be in the dugout anyway. They have to be in the stand. Well, you know what? Hit them in the mic. Talk to them for a little bit.
Jacob deGrom's on a rest day. Go interview him.
Yeah.
You know?
Have a quick conversation about the start of the night before, whatever. And to me, I think that's a way to generate the game, just like we do with the NFL. If they're in a place, videotape it all. And yes, be careful with what you release. I'm not trying to say, it's got to be written off by the player. But I think that makes it a marketable thing that will keep people engaged because there's nothing else on. You look at one of the things I think that they could really market on this is you're looking at content from other networks. Network shows got canceled. I think part of it is because they don't want to pay people they're not going to be filming right now. And I think that, and if you're going to be going for a year, if this show was, being in the middle of the road, wasn't improving or wasn't, is it worth sitting on the shelf for a year, then try to bring it back? Or is it, which it is, cheaper to try a brand new show?
Cheaper and might be innovative,
And it might be, yeah. So I think that I'm looking at that from that perspective as well is, okay, now if we're filming all this and if the NFL games are this, well, we're able to play on a Monday or on a Wednesday random night on ESPN a couple highlights from the week of like these guys joking around, doing something like or an interview. Like to me, I think that now it gives you content even on networks that NBC's, CBS, they're all on these networks that are going to be struggling for content.
It's so funny because again, you're right. We forget this in sports, and I think the sports themselves forget that. Is that right? They are first in entertainment. Whenever any sport is doing well, whether I don't care what it is. It's because it's character driven. It's not just talent driven. It's character driven. I think that's one of the things that's kind of hurt Mike Trout in terms of his popularity in this country. Is he the greatest talent we've seen really since Griffey or Bonds? No doubt about it. He's on the same level as those two guys. But people don't hear from him, and people really aren't that interested in him because he's not a big character in the game. Like, it's just who he is as a person. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, maybe you're right. If there was a hard knock situation where we got to learn more about Mike Trout and who he is as a person, perhaps that does attract more eyes to him and does make his story more compelling. Like people like Ken Griffey Jr., a Michael Jordan. There's a reason why they're once in a generation type players. Even LeBron James, as much flack as we give LeBron James, he is a major character, and he lets that shine. Is that the NBA doing it? Not as much as LeBron, but the sport can help facilitate that. Baseball never does that, ever.
And I think we're going through, just as you're once in a generational talent, watching The Last Dance, it was the quote about Michael Jordan, and it was about, did he make the league? And he goes, Jordan was always present. He was in the moment. Whether or not it was joking with the security, like he was always present in the moment, and that's what made him so just a media blitz, is because he was always there. He wasn't like that's what, and I was like, I never thought of it in that perspective. I'm like, you know what, that is true. So maybe that you look at it from that perspective is, Griffey was the kid. You had LeBron James is always willing to make be on Instagram on Taco Tuesday, like. Playing in this role to make yourself a character that makes you the star. Now, if Mike Trout's prerogative is not that, that's fine. I'm not gonna. That's your life. I'm not gonna use your personal life. But now we have a way. Let's just try to market you a little bit, just a little bit. Show off your.
His other play, he interacts with the other players. He might not be the lead, but just by being a side piece in Rendon's or other players, it's still developing him as
We have all this social media, all this technology at our disposal. Baseball has it because they're living in the same world we are, and yet, they're just not. The two still have not blended yet. No. Even though, like Jeremy, like you said, the whole idea of letting the kids play in this youth generation, we still have not really truly seen that merge in the sport like we have with the other sports. And you're right, Dubs. If the sport was able to do that. Again, I think it would do wonders in terms of marketing it and making the sport even more popular.
And one thing, like when you were talking about how the players drive, I can picture more times I've seen in a press conference or just speaking to media, Fitzmagic speaking, whether he was with the Bucks, with the Deshaun Jackson jacket, with the Dolphins. I can picture that more than I can picture Mike Trout. Mike Trout might be the greatest baseball player I've ever watched play.
Mm-hmm.
Which is,
Barry Bonds is, but that's fine.
He's wrong, I know. Mike Trout could be, but
that's what I'm saying. I said he might develop to be that.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
So, absolutely. It's just wild how the narrative. Individuals can control their own narrative. They can get assistance, but they control so much.
They can, and the sport is the stage for it.
Yeah.
But the sport also, I think the sport can even have a greater role in that. For people who may not feel as comfortable on that.
Yeah, the sport has to be like the manager and be like, all right, you go do this. They kind of let their personality shine.
And I think what baseball is missing, because what does hurt them is the fact that the Angels aren't, for Mike Trout specifically, they're never in the playoffs. They're out of it.
Yes.
Whatever, right? What I think would make it is if you make the season shorter, and they get off to a hot start. Now his games are now you know who he is, and I think that propels you. You might be able to take that as an advantage for this year and propel you for the next couple of years.
Yeah,
because he is unbelievable to watch. I remember when they go into games where it's like they just jump around when it was baseball tonight or whatever, and you're watching, and you're like, oh, he's probably gonna hit a home run, and he hits a home run. You're like, he's just unbelievable. And I think that's what they need to do. And I think that, marketing your games, the games, their games, you should have games on from 12 to 8 o'clock at night every night.
Mm-hmm.
You're just rotating the game in and out. Get the guys on TV.
Dubs, just because I've heard people say that so much. Okay, the big thing that hurts Mike Trout is that he's not in the playoffs. You don't see him in the playoffs. How many times is Ken Griffey Jr. in the playoffs?
Yeah. Same thing with A-Rod.
I mean, and later on with the White Sox, if you want to make it 3, that's it. Mike Trout, yeah, he's made it once, but Mike Trout also plays in L.A. Granted, it's the Anaheim side of L.A., whatever that means.
Yeah.
But it's still L.A. Griffey played in nothing Seattle. He made Seattle. That's the reason why they're still there. Again, Griffey, Trout are two different people. Yes. But back then, baseball was way more willing to promote Ken Griffey Jr.
Well, I think that also
you don't see it happening with Trout.
What I think there's 2 reasons there. One, Griffey grew up around the sport because of his dad. I do think that does play a role.
That is a nice storyline.
That does play a role in it. And Griffey's personality is different. And I think that's where I struggle with Mike Trout. Is if Mike Trout doesn't want that, that's difficult for me to say, because at the same time, and I'm critical of a guy like LeBron James, sometimes I feel like LeBron James is just out there promoting LeBron James. So
sure,
and so it's that catch-22 that I'm in of, if he wants to do that, yes. Now, that's where I think baseball has to be a little creative, especially right now. You could be creative. Guess what? You're going to see Mike Trout every day play around the world. That's where I think you need to do it, in the sense of all these games are in these hubs. So whatever you're watching this game, I think that's what needs to happen, because there was a chance to jump on people knowing more about these players. That's it.
Agreed.
Where are we on to next now?
We've kind of hopped on every sport.
Yeah,
a little
it's
bit.
good. It feels good.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, I'm gonna say this now because it's on ESPN right now. It's a college football championship game with Clemson and Bama.
I know.
And today, we were talking about this earlier, today marks, which would have been, I would have walked into school today, and Mr. Cloud would have been sitting there. Coach K would have been sitting there with his coffee and his donut. And I would have walked in and goes,
I mean, wait, what's today? Today's Thursday?
Today's Thursday.
Yeah, I would have had a donut. Yeah.
Donut. I know. And I would have walked in and you would have been like, Dubs, you know what today is, right? And a couple of our other colleagues would have been upset with us. And I would have said, it's 100 days to the start of college football. It is a sad, because I don't think it's gonna happen. And
yeah, it's definitely not happening.
As much as these 80s talk, but 100 days and get to watch Sean Watson get hit all the time.
Yeah,
I was actually having a good day until he reminded me of that.
Yeah.
There's 2 things. One, it's always weird and kind of funny that's a thing. Like 100 days until college football. Like that's actually a countdown.
It is. It's phenomenal.
I know. It's funny that like a third of the year is counting down to, when college football starts.
Yep.
Yeah, but but like talking about just college sports, like the NCAA, they're in a pickle, because they, if schools shut down, because I remember they said they're not going to do it. That's the thing. California shuts down. All those, I remember I was talking to Dubs about that. USC, California, all those kids, the recruits, they're out. So now you're putting those schools at such a deficit for years. That's not a 1-year fix. That is years to fix.
Which is why I think it's kind of weird, in a weird way, where it's going to help the G League. Because I think in the Zion Williamson story on the side of maybe accepting money or whatever, the gift, I think that the G League is going to, and I think if the NBA gets a season going, we're able to create some type of revenue, you're going to be able to maybe just expand it, and you might take over the NCAA college basketball.
Yeah,
all those stars. And that, I think then what it would be, would go back to being you're there for 4 years. You're not jumping ship.
Yeah, and I think that's key. They would take over the stars. I think NCAA would still have the history. March Madness will never lose. But they'll take over the superstars, which as a whole, people don't really know them. The average person doesn't know them going from high school to college unless it is Zion. Unless it is someone who was that phenomenal. So for the most part, there will still be a bunch of quality players, obviously. But But it'll be interesting what happens with the coaches. If G League starts paying well,
because what if Calipari, you're not getting those guys.
yeah, like what if would a coach be willing to go to the G League? Maybe how Billy Donovan went from Florida there. What if the G League might become a coaching pipeline? I don't think it would be that big of a threat, but that
not
could
for
be
your major guys. Not for your major guys.
I know.
Those schools are still going to have major dollars to pay their coaches. That's something I do wonder. We're talking about, players. If you don't play, you don't get paid. What about these college coaches if there's no games? Mm-hmm. Do they still get paid? Nick Saban makes a ton of money, and if there's no college ball season, does he get his yearly salary? I'm assuming he does, but is that right? I don't know.
Maybe that means the southern states won't be in a deficit anymore. That'd be good.
Yeah. And a big thing that they would get a lot of flack for is if, these coaches pick up these checks, which again, they might rightfully be able to do so, but then they have to end up cutting other programs. Some schools have already cut cross country, they might cut swimming. And if you're that $6 million or whatever, the few million that, depending on the school, that could supplement and just keep those programs alive. Golf, tennis, and you potentially would get a lot of flack for that. Rightfully so, I think.
I do wonder if that's a good point, because it's a tough sell to be paying taxpayer dollars if you're not playing. Now,
the difference is
certain states.
In those states, that's the one thing I think they want their tax dollars.
Yes. Bama wants Nick Saban. I get that. I'm not arguing with that. Yeah. But I do think that I'm trying to think of a state because it's most of the states are actually the highest paid employee is a coach, mostly football. Yeah. And that's where you kind of look at it like, if that's where my tax dollars are going, you're a public school, I don't know. And
lay off 5,000, secondary teachers statewide, or Ed Orgeron, we're cutting your pay, X amount of dollars.
And it's not like they're going to go anywhere anyway.
I'm just paraphrasing, but it is a possible situation that we talk about very soon in the future.
Mm-hmm. And I don't see any of the coaches being like, "Oh, you're cutting my pay, I'm leaving." Ask the boosters to pay for it. There's got to be some under the table. Like, come on, it's college sports.
Nick Saban got his mortgage paid for by the boosters because they wanted to. Nice.
And you're like, oh, wait, I had a second home, too, and a third home.
Only in America.
Speaking of only in America, because this transcended not just from America into the worldwide dominance of the NBA. Let's talk a little bit about The Last Dance. We'll kind of wrap that up with that. The documentary, I enjoyed it. I think that there was some good things, storylines, especially of Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen, of their growing up and what they had to ordeal. And I think that was interesting to see how these guys were these kind of know-nothings in high school and how they shot up in college and then get, like, to me, that was amazing. Like, you don't see, like, you still see that, but to me, you don't see that as much. It's always about these top recruits. And you look at these two kids who went nowhere to these no-name schools. I mean, Scottie Pippen had to, because kids flunked out, convinces his coach, who's a team manager, to let him play. Then he shoots. I mean, yes, he does grow, but it's just amazing.
That was the most inspiring part of that story.
That's the That's the dream. Hope. Yeah, that's the dream that all kids have.
Yep. Shooting up. I still have that dream of shooting up.
I think it's going to happen. I would love to be
6 foot tall.
And I just think that to me, that was the really cool part. I think, Jordan was in control of it, so it was a little, definitely played towards Jordan. I do think the Horace Grant clapback was kind of interesting. Saying, no, that wasn't me. I think that was cool, because you could see that it does affect them. It's a raw mentality. But what I'd like to, which is kind of cool, and it's how they are, especially nowadays with the social media aspect, when you see Steph Curry and like them doing their shoot-arounds. But like them doing their shoot-arounds and you're just watching and, he goes up and Scottie Pippen's in this deep conversation with Phil Jackson. And Jordan just goes up, bumps him on purpose, and then Scottie just like goes to block the shot. And I was like, that's just kids in the backyard. Like, that's us growing up in the backyard playing, because all you're doing is fooling around. Like, when you're doing the shoot-around, you're fooling around. And they're all doing that. I think that was just a cool aspect to watch of back then. I
It
think
it definitely was. I wish there was more of that. Like in the first four episodes, really, if you watch 30 for 30 regularly, like if you saw the Bad Boy Pistons 30 for 30, the 30 for 30 they did on Rodman, like I feel like that was just like a review. And it didn't really, I mean, for me, since I already watched those and I knew that part of the story, I didn't learn much. I mean, I think for a more common sports fan or a more common basketball fan, it was probably very, very eye opening. But if you kind of already knew that stuff, like we've heard, I mean, again, if you watch that kind of stuff, if you're into that kind of stuff, you've seen the Isaiah Thomas snubbing the Bulls on their way out of, the Palace Hills. Like you've heard that story like so many times, and like it's the same thing with Rodman and his upbringing, the impact that Chuck Daly had on him, and this change that happens with him, after he leaves the Pistons, or maybe I think he was still there with the Pistons when it happened. Regardless, I going into this documentary, I really thought primarily it was going to be about behind the scenes, what's going on in this 98 season. And if you go back and you watch these 9 episodes, maybe I'm off a little bit, about 60 to 65% of it is just the past, like leading up to the 98 season. I kind of had an issue with that a little bit. Like I get like 9 parts, like how deep are you going to go into the 98 season? I just thought it'd be a little bit more evened out. And it seemed a lot of it was just the past. And like, if you saw Jordan rides the bus, if you read, Jordan biographies, like the Jordan Rules book in particular, if you read that kind of stuff, then you kind of already know it. So to me, there were some eye-opening things, but I'll put it this way. If there was sports going on right now, are we really talking about this?
I don't know.
Well, I think it would depend on what the Lakers are doing.
And yeah, and that was something that I would say is the big thing about this is a lot of people who watch this never got to see. I know at least people my age never got to see Jordan play. So this was a huge time that, and the even above average sport fan doesn't watch all the 30 for 30s. They're not that they're more invested in the actual event, but not everything around it. So I think, for super fans, there might have been bits and pieces, but as someone who never got to watch Jordan play, this was cool to see more of the mentality, and then the people who also were around him.
So, Jeremy, you never having seen Jordan play, did this change the way you looked at him, or maybe a Pippen or somebody like that? Like, and that's hard to put in context for myself, because and Dubs for you too. I watched Jordan play.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Great, I was young, but I still remember watching him play and me thinking, okay, there'll never be anyone greater than this. This is amazing. So did you feel that? Like,
honestly, probably the two, obviously Rodman and Pippen were probably the two biggest, but also Rodman, because I've only heard things about Rodman recently and how Rodman is he's a unique person. But being able to see him, how like he kind of was unique then too, but was able to play, and they talked about how he was always there. He always wanted to win, and there was the story about I forgot which episode it was, but he was out late and they had a run, but he was the one who was leading it still. He was like, I'm still gonna beat, even though like I was partying or he was overweight. That's what he came in overweight, and he was like, I'm still gonna beat all you guys. And it was cool to see, like, all right, he wasn't just like a guy who was really talented and just weird and just kind of did his thing. He wanted to compete at a high level, and I appreciated that.
To me, the coolest part, I just remembered it, was the Rodman one, where we look at these players and it's shooting the ball, it's dribbling. Like how do you make your craft better? And it was him waking up his buddies at like 3 a.m. going, shoot the basketball, and learning how to grab rebounds based on. And it was like, and when he was talking about it, I'm like, oh my God, he knows exactly what, if Jordan shoots this way, the ball is going to go this, like, and like just mind blowing. And I'm like, That's why
That
he
was
was so
cool.
Yeah, it
I
was
did
more
like that. That
intricate
was
than
cool.
I always thought that
Yeah.
he was just a naturally talented guy who was just really strange and unique. But it's like he was an athlete and cared about
He
his
had,
craft. And I
he had
think
the
that for
mind.
me and people my age really appreciated that because it was always Jordan and he had a really good cast. But now it's no, he really had great players with him. And you have to appreciate that.
It's so funny. Like, again, going back and watching this and reliving it and seeing it is you look at the stat lines in particular. If you listen to Bill Simmons' last podcast on the 1998 season, and the last one he talked about was the final game against the Jazz when he made the shot. And you look at Jordan's stat line, and it's not overly impressive. I think he shot less than 50% from the field. But him talking through that, the fact that Jordan is so beyond the word dog tired, his legs are gone. Pippen's in the locker room all banged up, and literally, there's no one else to shoot on the entire team. It's not like today's NBA where you have one guy who can penetrate, kick out, and even the center can hit 3-point shots. It's not like that at all. Like, you go back and look at those stat lines where Jordan's taking half the shots, it's because he has to take half the shots because literally there are players, professional basketball players, who cannot shoot. So it's so funny when people say, like, oh my God, Jordan had all these great players around him. Jordan had Pippen. Pippen was great. Mm-hmm. The Dennis Rodman that Jordan had was very serviceable, but he could not score. He specialized in two things. Rebounding was one, and being a defensive nuisance was the other. And you think about, like, players today, like, who you can, like, a Dennis Rodman wouldn't exist in the NBA right now. He wouldn't be a starter in the league. He'd probably be some guy off the bench. He'd be your defensive specialist, like, for like 5 minutes in a game. That's probably it. And the rest of his cast, definitely on those late 90s teams, would not be in the NBA. So when people are like, oh my God, Jordan had all this great talent around him, he really didn't. I thought the documentary showed he had great guys, people around him, but talent-wise, my God, Jed Bushler and how much pressure he put on Scott Burrell. Holy crap. This guy was a journeyman basketball player that he was, like, depending on for his 4 points a game.
He's out of the league in like 2 years after that, and he's like 7. Like, you were looking at this, like, Steve Kerr could shoot, but Steve Kerr was the Steve Novak of that time. Like,
oh my God, yeah,
can't penetrate off his dribble. Like, he can't create his own shot. So if Jordan's gotta have the ball in his hand, he's gotta kick it out to him. Now, it fit the role. I'm not saying it was perfect role for Steve Kerr, but it's not. But Jordan was the guy with Scottie offensively.
Oh, 100%. 100% agree with that.
Everything for that.
But I think it definitely, at least I know from what my life kind of perceived, that it was always Jordan, which it was, but that Pippen wasn't even, like, always a true Robin. Some people say, some people always argue that he was a Robin, and some people said that he was, and that it was always like a weird thing because it depends on who you talk to. Which analyst or writer that you listened to or read really had a difference, and this was nice because it kind of encapsulated all of that.
And Pippen, by far, I mean, he's one of the greatest basketball players we've ever seen. I think the reason why the Batman Robin comparison happens, and we see this in today's NBA as well, is there are very few players who can rise up the talent of everyone around them, and at times put that talent on their back when it's not really being realized to go, I got you. For as much as I criticize him, LeBron James is one of those guys. Pippen had opportunities to be that guy. He had the opportunity when Jordan left for those, year and a half.
He was pretty great that 1 year.
What's up?
The first year out, he was fantastic.
He was fantastic. I mean, they didn't make the finals. They ended up losing to the Knicks. But I'm just saying, like, he was a good player, but he wasn't at the same level of Michael Jordan. He just wasn't. And that's why you had the Batman Robin comparison.
So is he, and comparing him to somebody in today's generation, even though I think this is where it gets weird for me, because even though I think LeBron James had to go there to win, because he had to learn how to win, is Scottie Pippen Dwayne Wade?
No, I actually, here's the thing. Okay, when LeBron gets to Miami with Dwayne Wade, that's when you start to see the Dwayne Wade injuries start to take place. So I feel like during that run, Dwayne Wade was not the Dwayne Wade of old. Like when he won it with Shaq. Like Dwayne Wade was the Batman on that team, and Shaq was the Robin.
Yes.
I think that first couple of years, especially, Dwayne Wade is still a top 5 talent in the league. But when you compare, I think, a Dwayne Wade to a Scottie Pippen, you're asking me who's a better player. I actually am going to say Dwayne Wade. I actually think he actually had a bigger impact on a game than Scottie Pippen did, especially when you look at early Wade before the injuries start happening. But by the time they win their first one in Miami, I think that's when you're starting to see the downside of Dwayne Wade's career. Okay. So
interesting.
Scottie Pippen did a lot of small things, like the taking charges, the phenomenal defensive player that he was. When you look at like scoring load, especially, and I don't know, it's basketball. To me, if you're not the primary scorer, you're robbing.
I can see that. Yeah,
I think that's the reality of it.
You do like the dirty work.
Right, and Scottie did all the dirty work. When Scottie was asked to be Batman, when he was asked to be the primary guy, that's not who he was. In Dubs, I think that's why my vantage point of LeBron James has been that. It's like when you needed to step up and be Batman, you still like to go in that little Robin role. Where like, I'm a facilitator. But this is the point of basketball is to score points. Mm-hmm. That's how your team wins. So if you're not going to be that guy, say it's on me. I'm putting the ball in the hoop. You're not Batman. You're Robin.
So Steve Kerr's Batman.
Yeah, right. For that 5-second moment. Yes.
But just because I think Scottie is he the greatest Robin of all time then? Because if you look at the talent around them, they don't have it. Like, because you can make a comparison because of, even though I think he's better, but Steph and Clay, right? Mm-hmm. Where Klay Thompson is a stud, but that team around the Warriors is a lot better. Even their first championship is a lot better than any Bulls teams because they have, Draymond could actually put the ball in the basket. Dennis Rodman can't. Like, so I guess he's got to be the greatest Robin of all time. And I don't know who you can have comparison because the rest of the team, maybe it's Kyle Lowry with Kyle Lowry.
The problem is in today's NBA, now I'm going to get really, really nerdy here. So brace yourself. The problem with today's NBA and the super teams is we're not talking about Batman and Robin anymore. We're talking about teams forming a Justice League.
Yeah.
Where they have multiple superheroes on a team. So when you want to look at the Warriors, honestly, yeah, you can say Steph Curry's Batman, but to me, he doesn't win without Klay Thompson being, Green Lantern.
Yeah. You can't disrespect Klay by calling him Robin.
Superman, and Draymond Green being Wonder Woman, whatever.
The only difference is they were all drafted, okay?
Right, except for when Durant gets. But regardless, again, you look at Steph Curry, right? And I think we would all agree he is the best on that team in terms of production.
Mm-hmm. If I had to keep one guy, I'm keeping Steph.
Yeah. Would we call him Batman in the same way we'd call Jordan a Batman?
No.
That's what I mean. It's completely different now. And for a while there in Cleveland, LeBron was. And he didn't have a Robin. He never had a Robin there.
Yeah.
But instead of someone going and volunteering to be his Rodman, he decided to go and form his own little superhero team. And that's the rest is history.
That's true. Which I wonder what that speaks to of teams not go. Like, I don't know. If you're the greatest player, how can you not get somebody there? You go through the history of time. How can you not get somebody there?
I mean, again, Kyrie left, 2 years afterwards because he didn't want to play with him anymore.
Yeah, Kyrie's got some other issues, though.
Yeah, Kyrie, as it keeps going, Kyrie's definitely...
Okay, sure. He has his issues, absolutely. Kevin Durant left Golden State to go play with him in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but Kevin Durant Also, like he like
Right. Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. However, he's still signing up to go play with that
Yeah,
guy.
he signed up to wait a year, let Kyrie take the team, and then him hop in a year
it's
later. You know?
true. That's true.
But
I agree.
who's signing up to go play with LeBron? This
Nobody
the
would.
greatest facilitator since Magic. Who's signing up to go play with him?
Yeah.
Anthony. I mean, I guess Anthony Davis. I guess you want to say that, and then Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. Like,
Guys chasing late rings, and Anthony Davis is the easiest thing in the world. You get paid big, and then you're the superstar of the Lakers in a few years. You know?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And listen, the Lakers to me looked amazing this year. When we had a season, and I was actually really looking forward to that Clippers Lakers matchup in the playoffs. I would love to see how these two go head to head. This is some of the best basketball I think we've seen LeBron play, which is again very impressive considering his age.
Yeah.
How many years he's been in the league?
Yeah, and the style he plays, it is very impressive.
It's very impressive. But the one thing I will say, and again, of course, it's gonna say that because Jordan's in charge of it. He is helping the narration of this. Is this documentary again definitively proved to me again that there's no comparison between Jordan and LeBron.
No.
It's Jordan, and then LeBron comes later on in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And, I still got to throw Kobe in there because
Which is fun. And again, I would also put Kobe in LeBron's class. I would put Magic and Bird and Shaq in that class. Like they all belong there. There are tiers, and I think LeBron is in that second tier.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, let's wrap this up.
All right.
We had our COVID discussion. Hopefully, maybe somebody will listen. You know what? I think
I was promised we were going to talk about cards, and now we're not talking about cards.
We got 15 seconds left. So
all right, no, just we'll save cards. We save cards for next time.
We'll save cards for another episode. But that is it for this episode. All the links will be down in the description below for you. You can check out 5FootNothinSports. No G's here. Have a wonderful evening.